Welcome everyone to 123 Chess, the place where we review, analyze, and improve. And my name's Luke.
I'm Tom.
And we are here today to review our game number 6, a very, very interesting one, as all of our others have been. And so I played as white, so I will go ahead and kick this off. All right, so this game started with an interesting opening that I've never played like officially on our channel yet. This is you would call it a transpositional opening, similar to, you know, how last week, Tom, you did the English, and so this one is similar to that in the sense they both transpose into other openings many of us are familiar with. So it lends to more flexibility. The problem with that is you also have to be aware of what you want to go with, and your opponent has a little more options. And so that goes to the next move. Well, right here, if I were to play e4, Tom's probably going to go e5 because e4, e5 games, that's right up Tom's alley. And that's not up my alley. I can do it, but I didn't really want to go with that because, come on, let's face it. If you don't know by now, I'm a positional player. So I was kind of playing with the idea of that technically, okay, the ready opening is technically not the ready opening until I push this pawn, and then Tom would, or actually, if Tom were to go right here and then I move this pawn here, that's technically the ready opening. But the knight move in the first move is kind of the start to that. So anyway, as we move on, I decided to go queen pawn. I wanted to kind of keep it closed. I didn't want to open things up. So that's kind of how it happened. Okay, d5. Okay, now this right here, I played c4, attacking the center right away because I liked it that Tom had a knight here. Now, a lot of times, you know, in queen pawn games, where especially like Queen's Gambit, it's beneficial for both sides to have the C file enabled for the pawn to advance. So I liked it that I had a little more space potential, unless he would have to move his knight to get the C pawn in the action. So that was my logic. Okay, and then very straightforward. This is kind of in the spirit of the pawn structure of like a Queen's Gambit decline, which actually it ended up turning into that. So here's with my knight. I said at this point that I knew that b4, bishop b4 was coming, pinning my knight. I always feel uncomfortable with this with queen pawn, specifically Queen's Gambit games. It never makes me feel good. And the statistically, the Nimzo, what's it called? Nimzo Indian or something like that, where the bishop comes there right away. This is a reason why a lot of strong players will play this knight first, because they postpone that because they don't want the bishop to have that pin early. So there it is. And now I decided to play this. So obviously when I play e3, notice that it has blocked in my dark square bishop. So that's not exactly optimal. However, that being said, it is closed. And so the idea is I could potentially go for a long diagonal. There's other ideas of maneuvering depending on how he plays. Okay, and very straightforward. We got, you know, a very solid structure here with both of us have, you know, good pawns and 4 knights. All right, developing another piece. Now, this is the first part of the game where I started to think of some strategy. At this point, I realized, okay, that definitely kind of loses a tempo, but my guess here was that Tom was going to try to reroute his knight somewhere, because Tom probably knew at this point that I was going to be castling kingside, as is traditional in the Queen's Gambit. So it's, you know, it's logical in that sense. But what I decided in this move is I realized that, okay, now that it's kind of boxing in his queen a little bit, It's kind of cluttered over there. I decided I needed to do something to just continue to my development so I can maintain my, development or tempo advantage. So I castled, which also now makes this pin no longer a thing. So he takes it, no surprise there. And now there's doubled pawns here, but keep in mind that at any point in time, one of us will take the other of these pawns, so it's not going to be really a true doubled pawns, which is, again, very thematic for the Queen's Gambit. Okay, now before I move that, right here, one thing I saw right away, right here, there's a skewer from his knight to his rook. So I knew that if I moved my bishop there, I'd get that skewer. So that's with a tempo, a tactical tempo. But what I was actually going for, because I knew that would only coax his, his rook to move over, what I was actually going for is more control over these two squares, because I knew that, again, I'm trying to keep or maintain my space advantage on the queen side. And so in doing so, I want to prevent this pawn from advancing. I also see that there's not too many places he can develop his queen. I mean, he's going to have to get the knight over here. And so I'm just trying to make more problems for the development of his queen side. And it seemed like a logical approach, because now I have both pawn, I have both pawn and bishop guarding here. And then I have the bishop also watching over here, so the queen can't come into d6. All right, so this point, I was a little bit uncertain where to go from here. In my notes, I put I don't want to play c takes d5, because what that's going to do is allow him to open up the diagonal for his bishop. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to lock in his bishop the whole game. That's essentially, if you could call out one major goal I had from the very, the first 10 moves, it was to lock in his light square bishop the whole game, so it has no action. Now here, I decided, well, just one more thing to back up here. So I had at this point, because again, it was hard for me to know how to develop a good strategy. And so I decided there's essentially 3 candidate moves for me. Candidate move number 1 would be moving my queen here. By moving the queen here, I create a battery threat against h7, should this knight ever move. And then it's also, keeping watch over the queen side in case he starts to advance those pawns. And then also my second candidate move would be moving the knight here, which is pretty obvious as well. The whole idea is it's allowing me the option of fortifying my knight with an f4, kind of in the spirit of, a lot of other systems like the Collet system, the London system, a lot of these where you try to keep, maintain control of the e5 square with the intention of jamming a pawn in there and forcing the knight that's guarding the king away. So that was my second candidate move. And my third candidate move, which I actually ended up going with, is simply b1. Very simple, very straightforward. It's eyeing b7 with the hope that it's going to, again, everything I'm doing, as you've heard so far, is I'm trying to stifle his development on the queen side. So I'm trying to lock up the board. I'm trying to just, squelch the possibilities of development on the queen side. And this plays into that. It's harmonious with that intention. Okay, so right here, I'm just gonna read you what I wrote. I said, wow, that surprised me. I definitely wasn't expecting it. I don't like it that allows for his queen to swing into a5, and it's hitting both my bishop and my pawn. So that right there was probably the biggest shocker for the game for me, Tom, was that pawn move. And it was good because it also is kind of, it's kind of more like the Slav or semi-Slav defense too, which again, all these terms, I'm not really that familiar with them, but I know that they have a solid, solid idea. The problem is, since I have the dark square bishop, my guess is Tom's going to probably want to get rid of that at some point. So I got to be careful. And I don't like it how these are just lined up asking to be hit at. So I decided to go with my other candidate move, if you remember before, because now this creates that threat on h7. So now I have the threat here. I'm still controlling these two squares. I have the threat on h7 with a battery from my king and bishop. So this piece is locked in. This piece can't move. The queen is probably the queen is probably the biggest action piece right now that I can see on his end. From here, I decided to, and by the way, I took a long time on my clock on this turn. So it was hard to come up with something else. And then, okay, here we go. So this is what I mentioned before. Very logical. He knows that since I'm castled to kingside, get both of those knights. It also helps guard. So now the battery threat on h7 is no longer there. So this knight actually can move if he wants to. And sure, I can get doubled pawns if I decide to attack the knight, but honestly, that's not really what I was going for. My light square bishop is super powerful in this position, and I don't want to lose him. So here we go. It's funny how those candidate moves keep popping up. There's my third candidate move. I wanted to maintain that E5 square, and keep in mind, now I will say, Tom, back in the day, I would have not seen this if I was white, because the simple idea is if you take me, obviously I take you and kick the knight. But I wouldn't have seen that before, so it excites me. Even those simple little things, hey, I'll take it. I feel like we're improving in that way.
Then you would have been like, well, my pawn structure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally. So the idea is it's with tempo kicking his only defender of h7. So yeah, so that was my idea. And also, what do I want to do here? I probably want to jam f4. So he retreats it. Now, at first I thought, wow, you're retreating it? But then I was like, oh yeah, I remember that game that was it from that? The one?
Yeah, it was from the game that we studied.
Yeah.
That's a common move that Ben Feingold talks about, is putting your knight on Nf8.
Which I would have not.
Nf8 can't get mate.
I would have probably not done that. So it kind of puzzled me. I was like, wow, that was clever. It seems kind of like, the knight doesn't have many places to go, but the knight's serving a really solid purpose. And it's with that in mind that I decided, okay, this bishop, well, he's not really doing much. I like controlling the dark squares, but I want it to be locked up so that this is always a threat and he can't move this, and it'll force a pawn to advance at some point. I want to just weaken his king side now. So it's funny, I didn't mention this in the notes, but as I'm talking, I'm realizing at this point I started to switch my mindset to a king side mindset, kind of. So I took it. And, he doesn't have a bishop. So keep in mind, neither of us would have, now have the bishop pair. So I did think about that too. I'm like, it is a close position, but I would have preferred not to have either of us have bishop pair. So we're okay. All right, he takes it with the knight, with the rook. And now I said to myself, well, now everything is nicely locked up. I should increase the pressure on b7 by doubling up my rooks on the b file. So, well, that's exactly what I did. I decided to lift my rook. And now, and at this point, so I was already going to be doing that, but I got excited at this point because realizing that now I have this doubled pawn, which I would like to serve a better purpose. And I this whole game, the tension has been left intentionally. I'm not going to take there, and so it's just going to sit there. But now I realize, if I advance here, I have full control, right, of this spot. So that's what I did. And, keep in mind, en passant. So if Tom wants to advance the B pawn to, like would have been a logical choice to gains. Yeah. Yeah. So, that was a good choice. And I feel like, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like if I didn't play that pawn move right away, you would have definitely done it.
That's what I wanted. That was my next move.
Yeah, it was very logical. So so I feel like the tides would have turned pretty well for Tom's favor if he had started gaining space in the queen side right there. So I didn't call that a key moment, but hey, that's pretty key in my book. All right, so then Tom's, over protecting that pawn, knowing that I'm going to bring my other rook over, and I do. All right, so G6 happens. I like this because it's weakening the king side a little bit. All right, so now I jam my rook in here, and at this point, it seemed really comfortable for me, but as you'll see in the next few moves, it became more and more difficult for me to know how to actually like capitalize on that weakness. So the next move, you know, according to plan still, I mean, he's definitely development still and trying to get, you know, trying to get some active pieces for sure. Now, okay, right here, I did ask myself, can he develop his bishop now? I was kind of playing with that idea because, again, I've been trying to prevent it from doing anything all game. Even if he can, it's just a target for my knight. So in that sense, it's not really accomplishing anything aside from getting off the back rank. But I still was trying to, you know, I had my goal. I had my plan. I got to stick to my plan. Okay, so this, in retrospect, yeah, I'm not sure if this is necessarily the best move. However, if I was Tom, I might want to try to bring it in there. I don't know, because then you're losing a pawn, but it would have at least created some counterplay options. It would have opened things up for sure. So I don't know. Tom, you probably wouldn't have done that, right? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I was definitely considering putting my knight there. I definitely was thinking about it. I mean, just from the perspective of I felt so jammed up at this point, and so trading pieces in the middle felt like it was a decent option.
Yeah. So I mean, at least I saw it as a plausible option. At this point, it's almost position is more important than a pawn. You know.
And that is entirely why I moved my pawn forward on that previous move too.
Yeah.
Was to give my knight the out to be able to start moving.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, so that's why I did F3, just to, again, maintain control of these squares so that there's no possibility of his knight jumping there. And, you know, keep in mind, if Tom's knight jumped over to H5, I'd be very happy with that because, you know, a side knight like that is not doing much good at all. And I would intentionally keep it there as long as I could and try to maneuver my queen around. You can kind of hear the terminology I'm using, guys. I'm being very transparent in what kind of a player I am. You know, like, okay, if we're snakes, Tom's the cobra and I'm the python, you know, because that's the idea, is I'm trying to just squeeze the whole board so that, just like the London system I played, you know, a couple games ago. And yeah, anyway, so not to digress there, but I decide to, okay, so this is where things got really interesting. I wasn't anticipating this move, and I didn't like it because it kind of parries my threat, as well as just neutralizing like all the action I had going for me. Because check this out, take. Yes, this is the weakest minor piece in the board. I get that. At the same time, though, I didn't really like that now it's a little bit more simplified for him, and I don't know how to take this stinking pawn. Like, I mean, we could just sit there dancing around with our you know, major pieces now, and I just can't see what I can do productive, because this rook could come at any time over there. You'll see it does, and it's just like I have this purpose, but I can't do anything with it. All right, so I decided to, okay, so this actually was a really good idea that Tom would have had. I don't know if, Tom, you were looking at that, but it was definitely, I mean, for one thing, it opens up this diagonal. For another thing, it'll, you know, if I didn't, let's say I didn't move my pawn there, and you move this, you know, if you move that, and I did, let's just do like a dumb move or something, I don't know, I'll just go like this. Then if Tom moved here, well, then that's really not fun for me, because it's opening all of his lines up, and it's threatening to, if I advance, that's just stupid. No one would do that. But if I, even if I went here, well, look at this. The board's going to open up really quickly, and everything I had going for me is going to go down the tubes. So that's why I was really, really intentional to make sure that I maintain control of E5. You've heard that a million times. E5 is a key square for me in this game. All right, and then Tom, you know, again, pretty logical. He's gaining some space. It's not really necessarily weakening his king side that much, because things are pretty closed up. All right, so now I'm playing with the idea of tripling on the B file, but hey, like, watch what happens. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, so, and at this point I said, now both of his rooks are stuck guarding B7, which is good. But then after this move, okay, well, let me say one more thing here. So at this point, I started to realize that I had to focus on the king side. And then this move here, so C4 is I'm intentionally trying to, I'm trying to really just create another, I don't know. I'm trying to do something to where Tom can go wrong. I don't think he's actually going to take it at this point, but at any point in time, if he takes it, it'll help my pawn structure. If I take it at any point, it could be advantageous to me. It's another element to confuse things a bit. And well, there's so much protection on that pawn, I just don't even know.
Care about that pawn.
But one thing I did notice is I noticed at this point, I said, oh, I feel uncomfortable. I said, great, now his queen is freed up to go somewhere else. I don't like this. I better get my queen into the action first before he does. I think F2 is a logical first square to get her onto that end. So there we go. So I think probably Tom was at this point thinking queen is probably the way to go. So I got to get mine out there first. All right, so now that we get to this point, I decided that it would be wise for me to prevent him from advancing this further. Very, very simple. All right. Now, with that in mind, I decided that I needed to, there's something else I needed to do. I needed to prevent, I need to figure out how I'm going to develop an attack over here. And I'm toying with the idea of taking here at some point with the intention of if he took with this pawn, well, then this would open up at some point as well. It's kind of creating some tactical possibilities for me. All right, so then as we move forward, okay, right here, I decided, all right, now is my time to take on here. I said, I wonder if I can somehow get a free pawn if I play C takes D5 and hitting his rook with my bishop. So it's a discovery. So I did that. And then Tom, right here, I said, no, wait, that won't work because if I take his rook with my pawn now, I can't advance my D pawn to D6 where there will be no pawn guarding it. So what I wanted to do was to do something, something clever and gain a pawn from it, but it was just bad calculation on my end.
I think you could have gained a pawn here from this position. I put this in notes.
Yeah, because if I went,
I have to move my queen now.
Yep. And then I could have, yeah. But the problem is that opens up your bishop.
It does.
I don't want to open up your bishop, Tom. I mean, call me crazy, but I feel like at this point, a pawn is meaningless compared to giving your bishop activity.
I mean, I would feel a lot more comfortable with this position. Like,
I know you would.
From where I ended up, to be fair.
Yeah.
So I could see why you declined that.
Yeah. So again, I'm not saying I did the best thing, but I had a reason for doing it. But it was a bummer that I miscalculated that in my mind because so going back to what you said, Tom, when I was saying that I would gain a pawn from it, my idea, well, sorry, I need to rephrase things. Technically, I wasn't trying to gain a pawn. I was trying to gain a passed pawn, right? So I stupidly thought that, okay, yeah, Tom takes it and somehow or other doing this would hit his queen and somehow this wasn't an option for him. These kind of things happen and you got to retrace your steps when you miscalculate. So that was my error there. So, all right. So next, what happens is I take it. Okay, Tom takes there, which I see why he did that because it kind of, the idea is this could kind of open up and hit this pawn, and plus it kind of locks in here still. So I get that because, let's say that Tom took it with this one. Now there's some ideas like, I don't know, that that's not a good one. But the point is, what was your reasoning, Tom, for taking it with the pawn you did?
I think the reason why I took it with the pawn that I did was this is, I mean, I think this line was certainly right. Being able to eye down on that pawn to advance. My plan was still queenside attack at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, it opens up the pawn that was directly in front of my queen. Just allowing my queen to get involved on that a little bit. I think that I was worried about weakening any sort of these pawns over here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, I think that's where it kind of came from too. I mean, I think my concern was, I mean, I guess to be fair, like that blocks in your rook is blocked in. I'm preventing your rook from getting into the action when I do that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just curious, but I mean,
there's this. No, because I've got the bishop that's on that pawn.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. That probably would have been the better way to go.
Well, as you guys are noticing, at our level of play, I think one of the key, I think this, Tom, and let me know if you agree. I think at our level of play, one of the key elements that we are really learning more about is how to deal with pawn breaks and how to, like, when to take, when to reject. I mean, when to take, when to ignore, when to advance. Those simple things we didn't think about as much before when we were hanging all of our pieces all the time. But now that we're at the level we're at, it's a little bit more integral to our thought processes is when it comes to pawn structure, pawn breaks, that kind of element. Okay, so not to digress, but let's move on to the next part. Okay, so at this point, obviously I realized that this is my opportunity to kind of get some action with my queen. So now I started to shift my mindset to the king side. Okay, h5. Makes sense because I see why he was trying to prevent any activity on the h file. But I ultimately thought it was nice because I think there's no pawns in front of his king, so that's pleasant in my mind. Okay, so again, very straightforward here, nothing fancy. I'm trying to figure out what I can do. I don't really necessarily have a concrete plan, but I do have ideas of, my queen is now in a really solid spot to do a lot of damage potentially. Okay, very straightforward. At this point, I did know that he was going to probably play there, and so I knew that if he did that, I would go here. He'd probably move his queen here, and now I'd force the rook back. That's what happened. Exactly what happened. Okay, so now one piece is guarding b7, so I've accomplished that goal. Now if he advances, or if he moves his bishop, which he wouldn't now, but at least this would be hanging. All right, here we go. So I wanted to control this diagonal before Tom did at any point. So, and let's face it, my bishop's doing nothing hitting here now because Tom has it guarded with 2 pawns. So, they're doing a lot and I'm doing nothing. So let's get the piece into the action, shall we? Okay, now hitting my queen. Do I want to exchange queens here? And everybody says no, because this is a really good position for me. So I need to come up with a game plan here, not just simplifying it down to make life easier on the person I'm playing. So here's another check. And let's see if I can maneuver stuff. I know being next to his king like that's going to do something for me at some point. And now things get really interesting. I decide that this rook now is serving no purpose there. So I'm like, okay, now this spot is a potential for me to swing my queen or rook into if he removes his queen from the back rank. Okay. All right. Now he, again, offering another exchange. Do I want to take it? Nope. So I'm going to go here. What am I doing? Threatening here with the skewer. Okay. This point actually, so I kid you not, in the game, I totally missed that I have this. So in the game, I thought, oh my goodness, it's checkmate. And when I actually wrote in my notes, Tom, that right before you moved there, I saw that you could do that. And I still went with this. I still went with this with the intention of getting a check in before you could. So I knew I had the initiative, but it was unclear how I could really end things and have a solid win. So I essentially resigned to the fact that you're going to get some counterplay potentially.
And the checkmate that Luke is talking about, just so everybody's on the same page, I can't put my king in check. So if you did just whatever move, right?
Sure.
Oh no, I gotta move the bishop, because we were saying the bishop is out of the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if the bishop is out of the way, that's checkmate.
Yep. Good call. Thanks for clarifying for our viewers. Yeah, so very sweet back rank mate, very straightforward. Something you always have to be aware of. And I tell you what, I played a lot of games where higher level players, they make that blunder and forget the back rank mate. So just, you always have to keep that in mind. So I'm trying to tie up all my loose ends and make sure I'm not losing track of his counterplay. All right, so at this point, what did I do? Well, I decided to get him in check because, well, that's the logical approach. I was playing with the idea of advancing this pawn, but I decided let's start with the checks. Okay, right there. Okay, now at this point in the game, I have to mention something. So those of you who follow us on our Facebook page, I actually posted a puzzle from this point because I mentioned, now I'll be honest, and Tom, I did not try to do this, but I accidentally saw the computer analysis for this. Just the fact of when I blundered. So I'm going to call it out here in a moment. But I didn't go in depth with it. But what I did find out is a really cool line of forcing moves here that that can really accomplish what I was trying to do. But I didn't see it until it was almost too late. So at this point, keep in mind that Tom cannot move his king at this point. So there's nowhere his king can move. And right now I have one check, which is right here. So right there, I'm checking him. And after that move, well, let's see what happens. So I check him there. Tom moves his king. And now I was struggling here. I could not figure a way. I didn't like it that Tom was controlling this square with his bishop, or at least attacking it. And I didn't like it that these two squares were being attacked by his queen. So he was guarding the squares I needed. And I did not know how to continue from this point on. I was really uncomfortable because I was getting lower on my time and I had to make a decision swiftly. So I ended up going with this, with the idea that if I were to sacrifice that bishop, somehow that would help me. I'm not kidding, man. I did not know. I'm like, I did know that there's no way for me to be productive without doing that. So I kind of saw half of the idea. I didn't see the whole, but I knew that at this point, I needed to go for a checkmate. I wasn't going to settle for a draw. I wasn't going to try to give you counterplay first. I knew there's gotta be something in this position. So for you guys listening, don't ever settle for a draw when you have an advantageous position. This was a mental gymnastics lesson for me, but I was thinking rightfully in that way. Okay, so then Tom doesn't take it. So I decide to check him, and he goes there and takes my bishop. Yep.
The bishop there?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
It was defended by your queen.
Huh? Yeah. Oh, sorry. So you moved here first. Yeah. And then, so then again, check. He takes my bishop. And now at this point, this is the one move of the game, Tom. I said, I feel stuck. I said, I'm running low in time. I should play queen G8. You know, I said, should I play queen G8 check or queen G6 check? So I was toying with this one and this one. I really did not know how to continue from here. Unfortunately, I never was good at true and false questions on tests, Tom. And in this one, I got it wrong. I went here. Now in the game, fair enough, in the game, Tom didn't go with the move that would have created a more draw-ish continuation. If Tom had gone here, then it would have been difficult for me to actually do anything with it, because the whole idea which I'll show you in a moment.
Controlled.
What's that?
Yeah, because these two square, I've got this and I've got this diagonal with the queen.
Yes.
So it's preventing your rook from getting involved there, and with my king here, it's preventing your queen from moving to those two pivotal squares.
Exactly. And so at this point, Tom, fortunately for me, Tom missed it. I mean, I just made a blunder. He just made a blunder. So, hey, we're even, right? And so now, now I get him in check again. And at this point, once he moves here, I'm like, I see it. I see it. I didn't see it before, but fortunately I was given a little bit of mercy there from both of us blundering. Now I see it. What am I seeing? Check gives him only one move, which is right here. And then I pop into here, check with a skewer on his queen. So I finally saw, I got super lucky because that game could have just, I almost had the rug pulled out from under me there. I had the right mindset generally because I knew I had a checkmate or a winning position option. I didn't know how to look for it. I knew that, and I got halfway there. I got the bishop sacrifice right, but I couldn't find how to hit here with my queen. So just to back up to give our viewers confirmation of what I was mentioning. So from right at this point, oops. Yeah, okay, so from this point, it's 6 moves to checkmate. So, I mean, not checkmate, but winning position. So check, and keep in mind if Tom goes here, the point is, yeah, so Tom, where do you want to move? Just pick which you think is your best spot.
I think I have to go here because if I go to the back row, then you get me.
Yeah, so so once you do that, then I go check, he goes here, I go check, he goes here, check, take, check, move, check, move, take. So that was the idea. And again, I got half of it right. Fortunately, I got a second chance at it. You don't always get second chances in chess, but it was, anyway, so that concludes my review.
Right. Thank you. It was a pretty dynamic end. I really actually did like that.
Yeah.
The end there, Luke is like, God, this is hurting my brain.
I literally texted him that.
Yeah. And I knew it was because like we had talked about forcing moves last week, and there were so many forcing moves there. And so I knew he was just running through all to try to come up with that option. You know, I had put my queen up there with the thought of, okay, well, I'm threatening checkmate in 1. That's my counterplay. My counterplay is he can't do it. That was my counterplay.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm really excited that I got that bishop sacrifice idea. Like that was fun for me.
Yeah, that was awesome. So yeah, Luke leads with his knight, and I know he's up to something funny as soon as he his knight. I mean, I see it a lot, and I mean, I see it a lot in a lot of the games that I play. This is usually going to be my typical response. Just like Luke said, though, yeah, I mean, the normal continuation that I see to this really is this. And I see that, and I'm going to be super comfortable. But Luke doesn't want to make me comfortable. So he plays D4 instead. And I say, okay, that's fine. I'm less comfortable with my D4 games, but you know, we can go there. And then when I see this come out, I'm like, so my thought was actually like, Luke knows that I like the Alban counter gambit, and this has really shut down the Alban counter gambit. Now, that's what I thought in the game. I kind of looked at this after the fact, and I really think actually I could have gone into the Alban counter gambit here. And I don't know, Luke, you can tell me what you think about this. But I really ended up like resisting this move, which is we went over for lines in a previous game.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that the reason that I didn't go with this move is like, well, I'm going to be down a pawn. Well, that's the point of the Gambit, right?
Yeah. Okay, so from here, yeah, that's what I would have done. I would have definitely. So now we're both blocking the key knight jump square,
Yep.
development square. So we would have certainly had an interesting game.
Yeah, we would have. I mean, it would have been something. I and basically this is the position of the Alban counter gambit. It's just played in a little bit of a different order because normally this exchange in the middle with the pawns happens before the knights come out. But I mean, there's no real reason why it shouldn't be able to happen in this order. So why I lost that and why I was thinking that was an impossibility, I don't know. Again, it was I really think I was looking at it and saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be down the pawn if I do that."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Gambit that I'm comfortable playing. So instead, I did what I never ever want to do when I'm against the Queen's Gambit, because I hate playing against the Queen's Gambit. This is why I choose to do the Alban counter Gambit, is because it throws off all the lines of the Queen's Gambit. It puts me into a state of comfort. I kind of regain some control. But instead, I go with this, which is, I know I'm just moving right into Queen's Gambit declined lines. And I frankly am not comfortable playing against the Queen's Gambit in the Queen's Gambit declined. And I'm also looking here like, okay, if I'm playing with a center board that looks like this, my other point of comfort too is bringing my pawn forward.
Yep,
right?
That's a thematic part of it.
Yeah, but the problem is now, because the way that this opening went, like I didn't even get that option, because had I played this and then this, at least now I can say, okay, well, I'm going to get this pawn involved, and I'm going to clear up some space in the center. But no, it's stuck behind this knight here that I now hate. So Luke's continuing his development just the way that seems nice. And this here, I'm thinking I want to castle. I want to castle king side. I want to get the bishop out of the way so I can castle. This gives me a little bit of tempo here, or a spot to at least pin that, right?
Yep.
Still continuing with development, clearing out the space, allowing for the castle to take place. And then here. So again, and this is what I talked about a couple moves ago. My idea here is I hated where that pawn was. I really just hated that pawn was stuck behind my knight, and so I wanted to clear out that position. Really, yeah, thinking eventually I'm probably gonna move it over here. I want to move my knight over there. I want to charge this pawn forward. And I want to charge it forward too. That was still the plan that I'm going forward at this point with. Okay, and here's where I just like dropped all plans that I had made. Okay, so I'm still. I don't love all this, right? I've had to move this twice. I haven't developed my bishop yet. But now, and I fell into the exact same trap that Luke did a few games back, where he discussed, shoot, I'm feeling like this bishop is now not doing anything, right? Because that knight can now move, right? And so that's what I do. I take it. I just dropped all of my plans, right? I just all of the plans that I had set up for. I had said, well, what do I want to do? I want to do that. And I don't know why I didn't. I really don't know why I didn't. So I just continued. So that my fear, right? My fear was, okay, you're gonna kick this bishop,
Yeah.
right? And I think that was my major fear. And I think my thought there was I'm gonna have to retreat. And normally this pawn gets defended by the bishop with that line. But looking at this, I thought, no, I actually, if you did that, I don't have to retreat because I can take there, letting go of my bishop. But if he takes the bishop, then I get his knight and get that material back. So I had this. This was me. This is one of the lines, right? You take, I take, you take. Which actually you do. It's a series of exchanges, right? I take, then you take. And then I get my knight out. And if I'm looking at this position, I like this position, right? My king's castle.
It's pretty solid.
Defending each other. I've got a presence in the center of the board. This is a weak pawn. I'm attacking it. I liked all that. That being said, I think just as I was going through here, that might not have been it might not be favorable to do that. I think this one ends up a little bit better. I don't know.
Okay.
I might have to explore that a little bit more.
Probably.
But it was instead I wanted to look at, okay, in the event that you take the bishop, right? Then I'm able to take, which then you're able to take the pawn. Oh, this is the exact line that I was looking at. But then I end up getting to take this pawn, which leads to recapture there. I get my knight out.
Yeah, and now your knight's eyeing my c3 pawn.
Yep. And so that's again, and I'm probably still gonna want to castle here. Right? So either way, though, I've cleared up the position, and this solves my major problem that I ended up happening over the course of the game, which was I was just so cramped up. I was so cramped up. I needed to break out, get a little bit of space. So and that was my plan. I had done everything that I could have to set up point the ability to do all of that, but I ruined it all when I captured this knight really quite needlessly.
To be fair, that is a really common theme in Queen's Gambit setups. In this particular position, yeah, I don't think it's as strong, but I do see that a lot from higher level players. With as soon as the other person castles, they snatch up the knight, they move on. But yeah, it just happens to be slightly different because your c pawn isn't advanced.
How about because of this knight too? Do you see that knight down there?
Yeah, the knight and the c pawn are both of those.
Yeah, because I mean, being able to recapture on that square with the knight and having the knight protect the knight, and then end up threatening that position, being a huge thing that I kind of missed. So, so anyway, that's what I ended up doing. Getting into this position here. Didn't love it yet. Didn't hate it. Yeah, there's the skewer that Luke talked about. So I break it. Because I wanted to move that knight, right? That was my ultimate plan, was to move to that position. And then I moved to c6, right? So my plan all along had been to move up here. But now the bishop's gone, so I don't have that defender that I used to have. So now I go here. Yeah, that opens up this diagonal, running those, which made me feel a little bit better. But what you start seeing is I've got all these light squared pawns here with an undeveloped light squared bishop. Which Luke really went into. It ends up getting me into trouble a lot. So yeah, again, bring that out, defending against this line. That's where I wanted my knight. We get that. And yeah, I mean, I did consider the exchange, but everything that we talked about before with like, not, I I take that, he takes with that, and now I've got to kick this knight, and that's the only thing that's defending this square now. So I can't do that because I've got that massive battery coming down at me. So I did. I took my advice from our previous games and Grandmaster Ben Feingold, and I put a knight on f8, and I felt great about that.
Yeah, it was clever.
Yeah, because now I had the double knights defending the square. So I felt pretty secure. Interestingly, I didn't even notice that you could take with the bishop there.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't really on my radar as something that I was really concerned about. I thought, after you did it, I was like, you know what, that makes sense. The bishop was certainly like causing me problems. I mean, at least especially in that I had all the light squares that I was on, so that dark square bishop had a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if I should have done it, but
Yeah, I don't know. But you did get rid of that one defender that was on my king, one that I really liked. But I did know at the same time, just with this knight there, as long as that knight was still there, I was still safe. So I wasn't too worried yet. Okay, so after this, this is where I said I was feeling cramped, which is exactly what Luke was going for. Like we had discussed, that is what I wanted to do. I really wanted to do that. I wanted to get some counterplay going on this queen side here, give myself a little bit of space. But as soon as that pawn came forward, I really wasn't even expecting. I'm thinking to myself, and maybe Luke, maybe you can comment on this.
Yeah.
But I think where my head was, and I think what you did was brilliant. I think at a lower level, the thought process, again, going back to double pawns, right? Just being this like idea of we're getting away from, double pawns are bad, right?
Yeah.
But at another level, I would have said, okay, well, I freed up my double pawns. And as white, I would have been like more than happy to do that and getting into this sort of thing. But that's exactly what I want, right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I want as black. So I thought it was really clever of Luke to move that pawn forward, which just boxed me in completely. So now, yeah, I'm everything comes like bearing down on this pawn because he has this open file here, and he's just going to start. He can start stacking pieces, right? Whatever they are, attacking this single pawn, and that's where my concern starts to come. And it's happening. And so here, exactly what Luke's talking about. I intentionally weakened my my king side. I knew that I was doing that. It was for the entire purpose of I just needed to free up this. I felt like I really needed to free up this this knight, who wasn't doing anything other than defending that h7 square. And yeah, as we discussed, I did look at that as being a potential move for my knight, or this. Luke had said, well, what about that a ways back?
Oh yeah.
Which he dismissed as just being awful, and it is, because I mean that doesn't get me anything there. So I've got to reroute my knight to get him back into the action there before getting him there, maybe, but that still doesn't seem like it's doing anything. So
yeah,
a lot of that's too much movement to be productive. So yeah, Luke's coming in, taking advantage of how cramped I am. I'm really feeling this bishop in the back row because I want to be able to get my rook involved here. And so that's kind of where this move came from too, right? So this was taken out as a potential move because of that. But now, you know, from this position, realistically, I could take that. Because, you know, that's fine. He takes that and he's just weakening this pawn. So he captures. And that frees up my back row with my bishop. But I put in my notes, okay, he's free, right? My bishop finally after all the time gets out of my back row, but now I'm stuck with the problem. Okay, what next? Like, cool, he's out of my back row. That frees up my rook to be able to move. But my bishop isn't really doing anything else other than that at this point. So here, and I don't know. I don't know if this was the best move. Yeah, it might have been further weakening my king side. But my concern that I had at this point was that this could come down at some point with the queen behind it. And I figured if I had put it here, I had built up such a wall there of pawns that this bishop was not going to come down and take. That was my logic. I mean, I guess that being said, the pawn here is doing a pretty good job of defending that one. You're not going to take there. I mean, if you're advancing these pawns, even if I take there and you're capturing with this pawn or something along those lines. So the bishop, I don't know. I don't know. That might have been a mistake, but I did it again. It was because I wanted to not worry about this big battery here.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. It's almost like I just was transported into what you're talking about and forgot what I did in my analysis or in my review. And I actually was thinking in my mind just now, even before my F pawn moved, I was thinking, yeah, if I was black, I would want to go F5. So it seems logical.
Okay. Yeah, so then we get more movement here. I'm seeing this queen come down and just more there. So right, getting that rook involved, which I can now because the bishop's away. Pawn comes forward. I'm not gonna take it. Now is when I develop my plan of I want to start simplifying the board. Like that's where I am pretty much from this moment until the rest of the game is we're at even material right now. And I'm feeling really cramped. And the best way to solve all of my feeling cramped problems are do some piece trades, get some pieces off the board here.
Yep.
This one obviously is just not favorable, so I'm not taking that. That's when I push this pawn forward, really with the intention of bringing my rook up, and it's a real roundabout way to do some trades, but that's my spot where I can get it done.
Yep.
I mean, I do see, you know, him bringing his queen over here. I know that's going to develop into some sort of a queen or kingside attack. But I've got a couple of moves to work with here. So I take advantage of those, right? My rook into the game. And this is where I recognize that line that I had said where I would lose a pawn.
Yeah.
That I was really concerned about. And I don't know. I mean, we touched on that, right?
Yeah, perhaps that I should have done it. I just don't feel comfortable with open positions when we're equal material.
Yeah. But I think the thing was here is it wouldn't have turned back into equal material.
That's true. I mean, sorry, I would have been up a pawn for sure, but
you would have been up a pawn.
I didn't want to open your bishop. I was really simple-minded in my goal.
Sure. And I mean, again, like we stated, I certainly would have felt more comfortable in this position. I mean, I was down one pawn, but playing in those open board states are, you know, that's a lot more, that's a lot better for me. You know, now I can get this bishop up here. I've got a double attack going on this pawn. I've got more pressure working on this side. I've got can come down here with the king.
That's devastating.
It is devastating, yeah. And so there's a lot that's going on in this position, which that pawn sacrifice, may end up proving to be worth it in the end, given all that position. So instead, he doesn't take it, and I recapture, and we go into all of this. So again, so Luke mentioned here, right? I'm doing more weakening of my king side. Again, could have been a mistake pulling that away, but my logic here, what I was really thinking was, I wanted to get my king involved. I'm really trying to trade pieces off, and
if you could get your king on G7, that would be ideal.
Yeah, and so my thought is like, I'm getting into the I'm trying to push this into an end game. That's really what I'm trying to do at this point. I'm really trying to push this into an end game, because I know if I get into an end game, I'm even material, and if I can get my king a little bit more advanced, then maybe that can, that can turn the tide for me a little bit.
Yeah.
Sneaking his queen in, and so again, I'm trying to simplify the board state, and every single one of these moves just ends up being me trying to offer that exchange. And Luke is just he's just playing too well to accept my gift. I'm really offering you a gift here.
I know, it was so kind of you. I should have gone for it, but I was too greedy.
So yeah, this position here too. And I don't know why. I really don't know why, but this took me forever to figure out, Luke.
It was hard for both of us then.
Yeah, as soon as I got here, I really thought, oh shoot, I am losing a piece. I'm losing a position. And I think where that came from was me thinking, well, my rook has been here for so long. My rook is defending this pawn, right? And now you've got another piece. Yeah, so I'm thinking I've got to keep my rook on there, not thinking about the fact that you're not going to take a pawn and let me recapture with a bishop.
Yeah,
you can take, right? Then I'm up material there. So that was my concern. I'm trying to think what other positions, what other pieces I had analyzed. I don't know. Nothing else was good. Nothing else was good. This really turned a forced move. And when I saw it, I felt happy that I found it. Once upon a time, I would have given up. But instead, I think, and this is a testament to all the work that we've done as well. And this wasn't even remotely an issue this game for me. Time. I don't know if you noticed that, Luke.
Yeah, weren't you ahead of me on time?
I was.
Yeah.
I was ahead of you on time.
And that's what was scaring me. That was giving me a lot of pressure. That helped your goal.
So it's all of that bullet chess. I've been playing probably 20 games of bullet chess every single day.
Wow, you've definitely had me beat on that now.
This is a testament to that. That's the practice, getting comfortable with that clock, because that allowed me to find a move that, you might look at this and you might think, well, that was an obvious move. And it was from what I've seen from doing this analysis as well, it's the only move that I had.
Yeah.
But it took me some time, and being able to free up the clock allowed me to sit there for a little bit longer, which was nice.
I'm not gonna lie, Tom. Real quick, I just want to say, like, I'm really, like, you're talking about, ways that you feel like you've improved in this, and I get really excited when I see the little improvements that I'm making, like knowing where to put my bishop when all of your pawns are blocking it, and then next knowing where to put my rook to get him more in action. I mean, those kind of little things. I feel like you and I definitely are. All these little subtle things, you and I are definitely getting better in.
Agreed. I agreed. And I mean, I see it reflected in my playing. I still throw away I still leave pieces hanging at times, and I still miss a lot of things. But like, it's those moments. I mean, that was a moment that I knew I got it because of the hard work that we've put in.
Yep.
And that's why you do it.
Exactly.
He's getting his bishop involved now, which is just more more junk. I mean, it's the same three. He's got the same three pieces involved as what I've got, but his are just way more active than mine are. So again, name the game, offering trades. Offering trades.
I had so many opportunities for a trade.
Yeah. So I mean, this is really where I had been planning on putting my king, even when I moved that pawn forward. Just the idea that I'm now defending both of these pawns, and that frees up a little bit of play for the part of this bishop is where my head was going, though that's not true anymore because you've got your bishop involved. Doing this, just putting more pressure on, more cramped. Again, another trade offer. So we get here, and this is where I went like this, and
I would have too. I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it was right. Actually, what I really expected you to do at this point is I really expected you to push that pawn out.
Yeah, and you heard that was one of my thoughts, is that was an option.
And I really figured this was just a transition move. It kicks your pawn out, and then I would move my queen to f6. That's where my head was, and then I'd continue playing the offer, the exchange game until maybe I have it, right?
Yeah. The me of 3 months ago definitely would have moved the pawn there.
I mean, there was also the possibility that maybe you're feeling time pressure and you're too excited about checkmating my king, and you miss that and you miss the checkmate, right? That was a possibility as well. So I figured I'm going to take the gamble. I'm going to move it out there. I don't see at this point in time a way that Luke can force a checkmate.
I didn't either. That makes two of us.
So I figured I had one move. I figured I would have one move at least to be able to retreat my queen back and get my queen back on defense if I needed it. So that was all of my logic there. And then yeah, we continue into this really cool sequence of events. It's funny that you had mentioned the bishop sacrifice. We got to this move here, and I thought to myself, I really wonder if I've got it. Like, I really.
Oh, you got it? You had it?
I wondered if no, I didn't have your checkmate. I really wondered if you had blown it by me capturing your bishop there.
Oh, okay.
Because I was like, okay, you're down one more piece. Like, if you don't get this checkmate now,
I know
that there isn't really going to help you now. I mean, it's gonna save you that checkmate. But like, now when I bring my queen back, now I'm up material.
Exactly.
And so now I felt like, okay, this could be the turning point here.
So intense.
and now it's just because you got rid of that bishop too. I mean, unless you're saying, okay, I throw in the towel and I've got to move that forward, I do have checkmate in one. You don't have your bishop here anymore. You can't bring it back to block.
Yep.
Like, this is entirely what I was planning on by putting my queen here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Again, I would have done that too. That was a really solid counterplay.
But yeah, and here I definitely missed that move. I didn't see it in my analysis. I didn't see it until Luke just brought it up there. But yeah, that would have been great.
But I think one of the reasons why you and I didn't see it is because it was not as thematic to the whole like back and forth, draw, draw, draw. Because that's a different spot, so that would have postponed a repetitional draw.
Right. Yes, that was my opportunity, and then we get this, and then once this happens, that was brilliant, and that was where I threw in the towel. But I thought it was a game style that I just am very uncomfortable with. There were a lot of turning points earlier on that were I to get stuck in this position again, I would definitely do things different. Right out of gate, that one. I think right from the get-go, I would go with what I'm comfortable with, and I would go with the Albin counter gambit.
Tom, I wonder how strong the Chigorin defense is, because just the mere fact that you don't have your C pawn in the action, I wonder if that in and of itself statistically is way weaker. I don't know, but I would wonder if a lot of stronger players that play the ready, if their opponent knows, they probably wouldn't want to play, play knight C6. I don't know. Yeah, that would
leading with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would have probably played knight C6 too, just kind of pretty traditional. But yeah, it's interesting.
You say all that, and honestly, I from an opening principle standpoint, you want to take control of these center squares, and you specifically want to get your pawns into these center squares. If you can get your pawns, right there and right there, that's the ideal. And with you moving the knight there, obviously I can't move my king pawn forward, but the obvious move is really that queen pawn. The reason why I don't typically do that is I'm uncomfortable with queen pawn.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real good point that you bring up, Luke. Is maybe even before I get into this idea of moving into the Albin counter gambit, maybe the best way is when I see that is just bring out that.
I don't know. I'm so unfamiliar with it myself. This was the first time I've ever played the ready like in a very like serious manner. So I don't know.
I mean, I will say too, like something that has changed with my gameplay over the last couple of years has been more of a focus, and I think this came a lot from playing the Scotch.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that opening theory a little bit better. And I think understanding the opening theory makes it so I should be able to do something like this. And even though I don't play games that are in this position, I mean, as black, this position, I know we're 2 moves into the game, right? This is my first move. This would be my first move. I don't know that I have ever played this as black. So maybe, I mean, I think maybe that's a good point to study, and I think I would like to go down that a little bit in my analysis.
Yeah.
Or our review is just seeing like what. Yeah, and I don't even know the name of this opening. What is this opening?
That's the Chigorin defense. So I don't honestly think I've ever seen a game that either I've played in or I've watched others play of the Chigorin that turned out well for black. Again, I'm really biased just because that C pawn idea is a really strong one in my mind, but I really, that it's thematic for queen pawn openings. black and white both want to advance that C pawn so their knight can come behind it. So I just
wait. I'm sorry. Are you saying that when I move the queen pawn out, this is the Chicorin?
No, I'm just saying. Sorry, I mean if you move your knight out before your C pawn at some point, that idea where you're doing a standard queen pawn response, but then you bring your knight out. That's the Chicorin.
Got it.
So,
do you know much about this? This line?
I don't, but I will say that what you mentioned earlier in the game, I looked up a little bit with the E5, and that is a really common, whether it's E5 or C5, you have a strong D file if my D pawn ever gets out of there. And so what you were mentioning earlier was thematic to the queen pawn counterplay for black is white has to figure out what they want to do with the D file.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I think that there's a lot to unpack. I ended up going into a game that I hate. I try to avoid these games at all costs, and I got sucked into it. I got sucked into it by this darn knight. Threw me off.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a key takeaway?
My key takeaway are if you're gonna play a Gambit line, recognize that you're gonna be down a pawn. That's one. Oh, when you have a plan, have a good reason to throw it away.
Yeah, that's really solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what this one here was. It was me throwing away my plan very prematurely, not recognizing that I could still do it.
Yeah. You don't want to throw away your shot.
Yeah. I feel like those are the big ones. I mean, cool. Yeah. All of the other stuff, I'm really gonna have to lean into the computer analysis for kind of the other things, because I did actually feel like my defense was pretty solid. I prevented anything from just anything dynamic from happening.
Yeah, I feel like it was too. I feel like you had a good assessment of pawn breaks and stuff.
I mean, the only other move that really made that key difference, right, was this one here. But I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't know. Help me here, Luke. Like, how would you identify this as being a moment? What lesson would you learn from this?
I think the lesson from this would simply be, if I were to make it as simple as possible, always keep in mind all of the squares your king can move to when in check. So if anytime you're in check, look at all the squares and consider the options. And the nice thing is you have only a couple squares, right? So yeah. I think your logic would have been similar to what I would have done if I were you, because you were trying to kind of go back and forth and get us to draw and stuff. You saw I couldn't be productive easily, but at the same time, if you see F8, you'd be getting out of the way of the threat that I had on D8. But again, neither of us saw it, so.
Yeah, and I think like the other thing is too, I think being aware of all the squares that the king can move to, I think I like that one. I also like, and this is something that I've tried to be better about in my games already, but making moves, planning on what your opponent's next move is going to be. You're better off preventing their future moves than just simply attacking a piece, right? Because this is kind of like attacking a piece, right? I mean, it's not a good attack. It's not a good attack, but I could, if he does this for some reason, I get a rook. And so that's kind of under that kind of falls under attacking a piece. But moving here, I'm actually being productive in something. I'm preventing your moves.
Yeah.
And I think preventing moves, an ounce of prevention is worth pound of cure, right?
Ooh, yeah.
Preventing moves is often much better than attacking a piece.
Yeah. Deal.
Maybe I'll go with that. Consider the king's moves, all of them. Preventing moves better than attacking a piece.
I like it. All right, so mine is number one. I know very little about the Queen's Gambit declined. Even though I had some solid ideas here, I want to dig in deep. And when I say deep, I mean deep. I want to understand everything I possibly can about the Queen's Gambit decline, because I would like to, it's my favorite opening, as Tom knows. And statistically, on every tournament I've played online, I do way better usually with that opening than anything else. And the reason why is because it's very, very positional. The kind of game I want, I get from it. So yeah, and then number two, I need to pay more careful attention to calculating forcing lines around checks, especially when all of my pieces are around the opponent's king. So the idea is I didn't give myself enough credit for being able to see ahead with the forcing checks. Checks are the most forcing move in a game because the king has to move somewhere or in some way, shape, or form get out of check. So therefore, that is the most forcing move, which allows you to see further into the future, like we saw last week. So that is my second one, is I need to pay more careful attention to calculating out a few moves, forcing checks. And finally is I still struggle with knowing how to properly exploit weak pawns by mounting pressure against them. So we saw that in this game, when you go back to the moment where I actually had my rooks doubled and I was trying to capitalize on Tom's B7 weak pawn, that was the whole place, the whole game that I was trying to capitalize on. I never found a way how to do it. So I want to revisit that, and I want to learn more how to capitalize on that. So I think that's it for mine.
I just wanted to, because you were talking about the success that you had with the success that you have in tournaments with the Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
So I'm a board certified behavior analyst. That's my gig. This here is my big professional journal.
Nice.
Applied behavior analysis, and actually. In the spring of 2020 issue, volume 53, issue 2, it actually had an article that was about chess. It was application of the generalized matching law to chess openings, a gambit analysis, where they actually discussed the Queen's Gambit as being a specific opening that ends up being played frequently by players. I'm presuming it's at approximately our level, and it's because they do have a lot of success with it. Earlier attempts don't, but as you're starting to understand like those concepts of chess, you end up getting a lot of wins with it, thereby reinforcing the playing of those gambit lines. And the Queen's Gambit was specifically the one that was discussed in that article.
That's so interesting. Thanks for sharing. That's cool.
Yeah.
And also, you guys, I need to point out the Queen's Gambit is unlike most any other gambit in chess. Why? It's not a true gambit. It's a gambit where it gives you a positional advantage, and you gain the pawn back if played. And if you want to, you can always gain it back. So you're never going to end with one pawn down like you would other gambits necessarily.
All of that being said, too, I feel like maybe it's time I give the Queen's Gambit another chance again, too, and play it, because just historically, like for a long time, I was very uncomfortable with queen pawn openings. I tried to avoid queen pawn openings And I really played king pawn openings just like all the time. I ended up 4 nice games all the time. I played the Italian a ton, as I think a lot of beginners do. The asymmetry that you get by advancing that c pawn forward, I think once upon a time made me a little uncomfortable. But now that's something that I strive for in a lot of my games. I really want to shove that c pawn forward because it gives you that nice flanking attack into the center of the board. So I think that it is a strong opening, right? It is a very strong opening, and I think that it'd be worth doing some more detailed exploring on my part.
Yeah, it's cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, just like last time, I know we've gone a little longer, but I hope that you'll realize that the depth we've gone through with some of these things is really going to be helpful for if you want to actually go there. So you guys have a wonderful week. And until we see you next week of our analysis of this, continue to improve your game.